So interesting where that you're in this point where you feel like you have nothing left in the tank and you're hallucinating, and then just out of nowhere you can pull energy from certain sources all around you just to give you another high. It's so
absolutely. That's a fascinating part of it. You know, when you think you're done, you haven't even started. There's such a outstanding potential in ourselves. Not just our bodies. Our bodies can only go to a certain distance if we allow the body to dictate things. I would say not even the mind has to control your line of thoughts. I think the true fire has to be deeper inside. And here I'm talking about beyond the psychological. I'm talking about the emotional, and I'm talking about, if you want to talk about it in a higher sense, you transcend the body, you transcend the mind, and you reach the heart, you reach the soul. This is why I say ultra running to me is a spiritual practice. It's a spiritual journey, because you really strip down all of those layers. I often say, when I go into races, I try to remind myself to, the mind is a great servant, but a terrible master. And I'm sure you already heard this saying. And by that, I mean, if you let the mind make the decisions, it's always going to take the easy way out. It doesn't matter how strong and focused you are. It doesn't matter how committed you are, because it's just an evolutionary thing. The battle, of course, is of the mind. It's right there. The battle of the mind is not allowing the mind to make the decision, the easy way out.
Winning voice.
Exactly. Because the mind is always going to play that game. It's an evolutionary thing. It's saving you from killing yourself running. But we know now that our bodies can go way further than what we thought we could. So at that point, if you put that on hold, you allow yourself to live outstanding, incredible, amazing experiences. Hi, my name is Michele Graglia, and this is my golden hour.
What's up, big handsome?
Good morning.
Nice to see you, man.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I know. I'm stoked to do this. I right now on my phone, so we haven't really run a formal podcast in like 3 months because we've been making a movie in Boston. And so on the phone with me, I got our producer, Lexi, and she did some kick-ass preparation for this.
Fantastic.
Lexi, you want to say what's up?
Hey, Michele, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you? Nice to virtually meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I know, man. I'm hoping eventually when the world gets a little more normal, you and I can go for a run sometime.
Oh, man. Absolutely. I extend the invitation to you guys to come over here. We got beautiful trails.
Yeah. So where are you right now? Like Big Bear Lake?
Big Bear Lake. Yeah. It's a mountain town about a couple of hours southeast of LA.
Now, what's the climate like over there right now?
It's winter. It's cold. I mean, like nights are like down in the 15, 20s. During the day right now, we're anywhere in between 30s and 50s.
Sweet.
So it's mountain weather. We're about that the town sits at about 7,000 feet. And we got mountains all around about 8,500, 9,000, 10,000 feet. So, it's pretty legit training ground.
I was going to say, that's what we talked about a little bit on the phone, how like it's been a nice adjustment going from like the flat concrete streets of LA to like the mountains. Totally.
Yeah, there've been a pretty good change right there. COVID hit the beginning of the spring, and we made some adjustments initially related to COVID, and then they played out very nicely in terms of lifestyle.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everyone acted like LA was like a war zone, and everyone just left and like
yeah. Well, it's a grid, and it's hard to live in there if you cannot. If you at the time that we had the lockdown, we couldn't even leave the houses. We didn't have any outlets, and so I'm like, I live in an apartment just like most people in LA, and the thought of being locked down in an apartment in a city where I cannot even walk outside, it was a little daunting, and so. We initially just got a cabin up here, to kind of get away for a month or two. And then, it worked out well. We liked it and we just got in the house.
Now, so I went out to LA like a year ago. Actually, before we move on, would you mind just giving a quick synopsis of who you are and what you do? I'm fucking pumped to run this, man. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, of course. Let me know when we're starting.
We're live, dude.
All right, we're going. Sounds good. Yeah, should I start?
Go for it.
All right. Well, and first of all, thanks for having me. My name is Michele Graglia. I am an Italian-born ultrarunner. I've been living in the U.S. for about just over 13 years now. And I have, quite I would say, a peculiar journey to share. And I look forward to do that with you.
Well, I think, so I started running about 7 months ago, and I ran my first marathon on my own, as we discussed, like a real psycho, probably about 40 to 50 days ago. And since then, I've been really bullish on the world of ultra running. And so just constantly bumping YouTube videos on the Moab 240, the Badwater, some of the I was looking at your Yukon race the other day too. That was insane. And there's a certain point when you're pushing your distance that's so addicting that because you're pushing your limits. And I've started to fall in love with it. There's nothing like it. When for you was that first time where you were like, oh my God, this is like awesome. I heard this, I heard this story of you reading Dean Karnaz's book.
That's right. Yeah, I was going to take it there. Well, I discovered ultra running. It was about the end of 2010. I was in a very critical time of my life. I was looking for an outlet. I was looking for something to bring me out of, the situation I was in, to bring me out of the city even. I was looking for adventure in a way. I was very much fascinated about adventure in general, but, I did a ton of research, watch a bunch of documentaries, just like, what are you doing right now? I'm sure, just diving in and taking as much as you can. The thing is, like, I just didn't find that one thing that was calling. And then, by chance, I stumbled up in Ultramarathon Man by Dean Karnazes. And that book, not only changed my life, but I often say saved my life. It really took me out of I would say pretty rough, I would say probably the most challenging times in my life. Despite being at the top of my career, I was falling on I would say somewhat of the depression, when you start questioning your life, it becomes pretty, I would say very, very, very tough. His words just lit me up. I just very much understood what he was talking about. And I related 100% to his message. I related to his position, to where he was in that specific time, on that 30th birthday. I could almost like line up the similarities, And I was like, wow. I mean, this is just like a light bulb, I was like, I have no idea what it is, but I gotta do it. I gotta be part of it. And so I just bought a pair of shoes, started running laps in Central Park. And just about five and a half months later, I toed the line to my first race, which, by the way, was a 100-miler.
Yeah. So I think that's also important to preface here. Michele has never run an actual marathon. You've only run ultras, right?
I haven't run an official marathon to date. Yeah, correct.
So for everybody who's going to be tuning in, an ultra is technically any distance over a 26.2 mile race. And so, Michele, the next legitimate race is normally 50K, like a 32 mile, correct?
31. Yeah, 31 mile, 50K.
So your first legitimate race was 100 miles. Well,
I toed the line. I passed out at about mile 84. That took me out with an ambulance. So I didn't finish it.
But you loved it, right? You loved it.
I loved every minute of it. I mean, it was probably the toughest thing I've ever done. I mean, hands down, it was the toughest thing I've ever done. For the fact that it wasn't just to me at that point was just a physical journey. I didn't understand everything, all the nuances that go in ultra running. And that's why I discovered to be such a fascinating craft. It's really like, it's a discipline, it's an art. I don't consider it a sport. It transcends the physical. It becomes a spiritual journey, in my opinion. You know, it becomes something that transcends your body and allows you to tap deeply within. It's just because you strip away so many layers of your constructed self. And that's very much like meditation. You know, when you tap into that, there's self-discovery. And to me, that's what became addictive. You know, since you were talking about the addiction of it, I don't think it's a bad addiction. I think it's a fire. It's something that is fired up by curiosity, in my opinion. You know, we have very much adventurous spirits as human beings, and you can see the exponential growth of the sport. It's not because people like to get dirty in the mountains. I think because people like to get in touch with themselves, and in everyday life, we never get a chance to do that. So those are unique experiences. Those are unique opportunities.
Yeah, the best way I can describe it for somebody who doesn't really understand it, when you kind of start reaching that level where your psychology starts shifting a little bit, it's kind of like being drunk, where when you push yourself so far physically, your inhibitions start to drop a lot. You start to feel a lot more honest with yourself.
Yep.
Would you agree?
100%. That's exactly, you know, we pretty much put up a certain facade, you know, a certain face, you know, to society, you know, some like we have to play the role, the way we act, the way we work, and all these things. And ultra running allows you to just strip down all those things and be your true self. So it is very much a unique opportunity. And that's why, you know, it doesn't matter how hard it gets, doesn't matter how hard it is. The moment you finish, you just can't wait to sign up to the next one.
Now, quick rewind here for people who don't know. So Michele wasn't like a slouch before he ran his first race. Like, you were like the hottest dude in America, right?
Well, yeah, when I first moved to the country in 2007, I landed in Miami, and I actually got scouted by a modeling agent, and that's, you know, when my life changed completely.
It was in Johnny Rockets, right?
It was right at Johnny Rocket. That's right. I was strolling down Ocean Drive. You know, a tropical storm hit. I just dove in the first spot that I found, and there happened to be a Johnny Rockets on 8th and Ocean Drive, right in the heart of South Beach. And yeah, you know, I met Arima Reed. She was the owner of the most, I would say the most, if you know, one of the most, if not the most successful, famous agencies at the time. And you know, I got catapulted in that world. You know, I started traveling Milan, New York, and everywhere. And, you know, it was an amazing experience. You know, I just, in 2009, I then moved to New York to pursue at the highest level. And, you know, I had a great ride. I was very fortunate to be, you know, the exotic guy, the Italian guy in a market where at the time didn't have many other options. And so to me, it was like, you know, riding smoothly. I was, you know, working with the biggest photographers and shooting with the biggest brands in the industry. And for what it was at the time, it was, you know, it was a dream come true. Because you can imagine, you know, as a kid from a small town in the northeast of Italy, you know, come from a 5,000 souls little town in the inland of Italy, finding myself in the Big Apple, you know, shooting with the biggest brands and, you know, living out that lifestyle, the good life, you know, that is one of those portrayed in movies and all of that stuff. And, you know, it was the experience of a lifetime. You feel like a king until then you see the backside of it. And that's what, you know, made me change my direction.
Now, what was your fitness commitment like during those days? Were you just like really anal on nutrition, or were you lifting?
I was definitely lifting. I was definitely working out. I was doing calisthenics at the gym, you know, in Ocean Drive. They have the pull-up bars right at the beach. Everybody half naked, all tanned, hanging out by the beach. You know, it was good. It was good at the time. And, I gotta say, I wasn't very attentive about nutrition. To me, at that point, it was more about starvation. So I wasn't thinking about what I was nourishing my body with, what I was giving my body to be healthy. I was just like, okay, I'm just not going to eat. So I trimmed down. You know, I have a shoot. Okay, I'm going to even take laxatives so I can completely clean up, So it wasn't healthy. It was looking great. Don't get me wrong. I had like 2% body fat, and I was rocking it. And the problem is, it wasn't sustainable, and it just wasn't healthy. And that's when, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So when you would cut for a photo shoot, were you taking diuretics? Like were you doing dandelion root or?
Yeah, about 24 hours prior, the day prior, take some, usually just do laxatives. So, that would clean up completely your stomach and show up those 8-packs.
Let's go.
That's the way to go.
I did a water cut for our film, which I'll discuss more later.
Yeah.
But, it's wild what happens to your body when you start flushing fluid like crazy.
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
I'm sure at the end of your ultras, you have a similar drop in body fat as you would for a photo shoot, correct?
Totally. I mean, different approach, clearly, and different functionality, I would say. The body just, throughout the years, I developed a very much, like an understanding of the physiology and what the body needs. So, the first races I would finish and I was completely depleted, completely drained. I would finish and I was like racked just because I didn't understand anything about, nutrition, hydration. When I talk about hydration, I don't talk about just water, just think about chugging water. I'm talking about finding the right electrolytes balance. And that's a real secret, to running, especially if you run in the heat. And, nowadays I don't drop as much weight. Of course, you're nice and lean, but it's not as dramatic as initially. And it's also less painful. When you drain your body, you feel it. It's very much an uncomfortable, action, but finding the right balance.
Sorry to interrupt you. What did you start the Moab 240 at, and what did you end at?
What do you mean?
Weight-wise.
Oh, weight-wise, I started about 155, 156 maybe. I usually race at about 150, 155 tops on the heavy side because, I always like to start a little heavier because I know that, of course, I'm going to burn it all off. So if I have a few pounds extra, it's all good. And then I finished just under 150. So maybe I would say 148 tops, 147. So it's, as you can see, over 2.5 days of consistent running, that's not that much drop.
Yeah, that is like way less than I would have expected. I've heard stories of Notre Dame football players losing like 19 pounds in a game,
Wow. Yeah, well, that's mostly water weight again, probably. But and the intensity is different, and also they don't get to replenish as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Throughout, yeah.
So in terms of training right now, Michele, have you bounced back from your taper yet or your break, or have you started training again?
Yeah, I actually jumped back on Monday, on Sunday, Monday. I'm happy because, it took me about a month and a half to baby that Achilles that I hurt during the race. And I got to say, it was pretty worrisome. Especially at the very beginning, I just couldn't walk on it. I couldn't stretch it. I couldn't do anything. And, when you look at it from a runner standpoint, just one day off feels like a lifetime. Imagine, I took some days off. I did some biking. I did some, lots of healing. Like I allowed the healing process to really work its way, lots of massaging, lots of, ice elevation, everything I could do. Inflammatory oils, everything natural. I haven't followed the routine that I like to do with like massaging and eventual acupuncture, just because I'm very I don't want to say concerned, but I want to say mindful about COVID, and so I just don't feel comfortable in going in a studio or something, get treated by a professional. But I'm happy to say, it's back on track, and I'm enjoying already this last 3 days. Monday when I did my first run, I felt like I never ran before. I ran 6 miles, and I'm like, oh boy.
Wow.
Yeah. But then,
was it your legs or your cardio?
I would say a little bit of both. The cardio, of course, I didn't push hard. and I just did 6 miles trotting, but the legs were very, very, rusty. But already Tuesday, Wednesday, things turned around, and yesterday I actually enjoyed a super nice fast run. I was cruising down the canyon, and it's amazing to see how the body works. It's just incredible.
So what was yesterday's distance?
Just about 8 miles. I'm still keeping it, in the single digits for this week. I'm probably going to throw maybe a 12, 14er over the weekend, but I'm going to slowly start ramping it up. Also, because my next race is at the end of January. So I need to jump back on. I need to get back on track. The end of January, I'm heading out to Minnesota to run the Arrowhead 135, which is up in the cold, carrying sled, running on snow. It's one of those extreme races like the Yukon. It's a little bit out of the way in the sense of, time wise. I don't like to race in the winter, especially if I have my goals set in the summer. But I think I can, I would like to throw it out there and manage it. And then I have some pretty big goals towards the end of the summer. And of course, it all depends on COVID always.
Now, did you sign up for this Minnesota race because you feel like you have good momentum, or is it just a race you've always wanted to do?
A bit of both. Yeah, I would say it's a race that I've always done, that I always wanted to do. It's a legit race, it's legit distance, 135, just like Bedwater. And then instead of being in the extreme heat, it's in the extreme cold. Sometimes it reaches temperatures of 30, 40 below, just like in the Yukon. And, it's one of those experiences that I always crave. It's one of those uncomfortable situations that I like to put myself into, if you allow that. What I mean by that is it's just a search. It's just thirst for adventure, very much so. Every now and then I just need to dive in and do it. So I came back from Moab and I was like, okay, I'm still hurt, but I don't care. I'm going to sign up, and then what happens. So it's, fun enough, the race registration was actually closed. So I contacted the director directly, the vice director, and he was kind enough to throw me a spot. And so we'll see what happens. COVID pending.
Well, I think ultra running is one of the few sports that's probably pretty low risk when it comes to COVID, because it's just a bunch of people separated in the woods.
Exactly. The only part that you have to be extra careful just to start. But wearing masks and keep a distance. About 3 minutes, not even 2 minutes into a race, you're already separating enough that it's totally safe, totally fine.
Yeah. Have you worried about you being an asymptomatic case because like your lungs are godlike and like you'd probably never show any sort of symptoms?
But I got to tell you, I was very mindful about it when I was in Moab. As of right now, I don't keep any. It's just my wife and I. We live in the woods. We live up in the mountains, and I basically don't see anybody, and I mean nobody, 6.5 days a week. We only spend about 30 minutes a week going to the grocery store. That's my social life. And other than that, I just keep it private and I just focus on myself. So I don't worry about spreading it. The only concern again was during Moab. So with my crew, I only had 2 people crewing for me. And other than that, we were very cautious, between each other. Gloves, hand sanitizer, masks, everything we could to just stay safe.
Now,
of course,
for those who don't understand ultra running fully, crewing is when you have someone providing you with water or aid along the course so you can keep yourself fueled and ready to go as you keep running. Now, was there a pacer in the Moab 240? Were your crew also keeping pace? Right.
Usually, yeah. Usually you do have several pacers, especially for a race this long. My problem going into this race is that I signed up about 4 weeks prior. it was very much like a last minute thing because I was committed to run a 100-miler pretty much like a month, 4 weeks before. And that race got canceled because of forest fires over here in Southern California. And so I had a chance to jump into Moab like last minute. So all of this to say that I basically didn't have the time to get the right team together. So I showed up there with one friend to start with, and then one that came about 24 hours later, 24 after the start. So for about 202 miles, I did not have a pacer. I had the pacer only in the last 38 miles, 40 miles. So that, of course, changed radically my approach. Having a pacer absolutely helps you, not just follow the track, not just having companionship, especially in the night sections, but most importantly, in my opinion, is having a clear mind that can help you stay on top of your nutrition and hydration. Because after, 24, 30, 40, almost 48 hours, that's when I hit about 200 miles in 48 hours and I picked up my pacer. Completely by yourself, you get a little delusional. Your mind becomes a little foggy and it becomes exponentially harder to stay on top of your things. And that's where things go south. Because if you don't stay on top of your nutrition and hydration, you're just going to crash. So the secret is being able to stay focused and stay on top of it. If you give your body the fuel, ideally it can go on forever. Only sleep is the problem. Sleep, you cannot go around it. I tried to push it for those 2.5 days. I didn't sleep a second, and I paid for it. In hindsight, I would definitely throw in a couple of power naps, and that would change the game completely.
Yeah, so let me just preface this. So Michele is talking about the Moab 240, which is a 240-mile race through the desert in Moab, Utah. And it usually spawns about 2.5 to 3 days for the elite runners. And so what Michele is saying is for the first 200 miles of the race, most runners would have a pacer. What he did is he ran it totally solo, and then his team helped him out in the latter half of the race, or the latter quarter.
That's correct.
So, question, when you start an absolute journey like that, 240 miles, is there early thoughts for you where you're like, wow, I have so much to go? How do you get how do you get through the monotony at the beginning? Like if I have a 20-mile run planned in my training schedule, or a 16, when I start, I'm just like, oh my God, I have so much to go. How do you get through that boredom aspect in the beginning? Because it only gets fun when you start picking up your distance, really.
Right. Well, two things. One is passion and one is mindfulness. And I explain both. Passion is, I'm so deeply in love with this that I never feel, it's never daunting. So I don't think about it as, oh my God, I have to run 240 miles. I switch the perspective of, oh my God, I get the opportunity to stay 2.5 days out there by myself. And that's what I love to do anyway. I like to spend time by myself in the mountains or in the desert, in nature. I love nature. I feel very connected when I'm out there, especially by myself, especially pushing my body, especially pushing my mind. There is something profound in that experience. And the deeper you go, the more you understand it. Just like meditation. And here brings me to mindfulness. It's about keeping into the present, keeping in the present moment. Staying present, staying aware, stay focused, not thinking too far ahead. I do practice meditation and I explain why. Meditation allows you to create a safe psychological space. By that, I mean, it allows you to clear up your thoughts, or at least teaches you how to clear up your thoughts. Because of course, in everyday life, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, we're bombarded with outside influences, news, words, talks, radio. Stimulus, social media nowadays, insane. So when you practice meditation, when you practice mindfulness, it's kind of blocking all of that stuff. It allows you to kind of bring the, instead of going out, you're bringing the focus within. That allows you to kind of be in control of what you're thinking. So by that, I mean, it's not like you stop thinking, but it's about not giving the power to certain thoughts to enter your psyche. And by that, I mean, imagine if in the Moab or in the bad water, you're 80 miles into a race. 80 miles, it's already a pretty respectable distance. And you're very tired and things hurt. And you're like, okay, I have another 160 miles to go. Whew. That's way too much. That's way too much to process. That's way too much to think. That's way too much to even comprehend for the fact that it's so far away and you have no control over it. So already there, you're wasting energy. So mindfulness allows me to completely cover up those thoughts and stay present, stay focused, do my best in this moment, because that's all I can do. That's all I can control. I cannot go back and fix what's been. So there's no need to worry about that. And I cannot go ahead and plan, and do the things that I want to do a day or two ahead. So I have zero necessity to stress about what's going to happen. No worries about the past, no stress about the future. Just do your very best in this moment. And that's, if you do your very best in each and every moment, each and every step, the sum of all of them, eventually they will bring you to the finish line.
I'm sure that's almost like a muscle for you now, and you've had to work it over time and develop it. But I mean, I'm sure there are times on the course where you need distraction though, right? You have your micro goals along the course.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's, if we talk about tactics come in. Sorry, just saw the fire dropping. Yeah, of course you have to, it's more like about micromanaging sections to me. So the tactic is always, okay, I'm going to focus right now from here to the next aid station. If that feels too much, okay, I'm going to run from here to the end of the canyon. If that's too far, I'll run from here to that rock. If that's too far, I'm going to run here to that tree. You know what I mean? It's almost like kind of micro goals. And every little thing can kind of keep you entertained and kind of focus on the task. And to me, it's like, I really don't feel the need to get entertained. That's what we assume we have to do. We have to be entertained. We don't need to be entertained all the time. Entertainment is fun because it's something that we can do in our downtime, but doesn't need to be something that we have to do all the time. Like, this is not an entertaining task. I cannot say running is fun. We can agree on that. But what I enjoy is the time out there. I cherish the time out there. I enjoy just being in nature. What distracted me? Just the beauty that surrounded me. Instead of looking at the ground and all the sand, I would look around and see all those mesas and those red rocks and those vast desert valleys. Those sunsets, those sunrises, that's what keeps you entertained. That's what keeps you going. There's no need to keep the mind entertained. It's about quieting down the mind completely and just being present. And that's what being in the zone is. That's what flow is. You're not thinking about anything. You're not trying to do anything. You're just being and doing what you need to do. So that kind of takes away a great deal of distraction. You don't need to entertain your brain. Your brain is doing what it needs to do. You're put into the task. So here, it's, again, another switch of perspective. You're not allowing the mind to make decisions. You just make the mind do the work. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. So I'm assuming that you don't do any headphones on the course.
I did not listen to 1 minute of music.
Wow.
In 2.5 days. That was surprising to me as well.
So all you're hearing is your breathing. That's it. Exactly.
You hear your breathing, you hear your heartbeat, and you hear your steps. And that's all you got to do. You are in the moment. I didn't sign up to go, to listen to music.
That's no, people are going to hear that. They're going to be like, okay, now this guy's actually nuts.
But again, like if you bring it back to the roots, if you bring it back to why you're doing it, there's no need for anything. All you need is just your shoes and a pair of shorts, and you just get out there, and that's about it. You understand what I'm talking about only if you do it. There's a lot of people that if you run on streets, hardly you'll ever understand what I'm talking about. If I run on streets, if I run on the roads, I always have headphones on. I just cannot stand the sound of crowds and the sound of cars and traffic. When I lived in New York, I lived with headphones on. Here, sometimes if I'm going on training runs and it's a long run and I want to enjoy some music, why not? But I just enjoy myself getting out there, listening to nature. There's something very, this is where I draw my inspiration from, just being in contact with nature, feeling that connection. We always say we lost connection with nature. I don't think we have lost connection. We haven't lost connection with nature. We have lost connections with ourselves because we are part of nature. So if you reconnect the dots, there's something special right there. And I cannot tell you about it. If you have to try it for yourself. It's something that goes against the guidelines and the direction the society is going. And that's why oftentimes it's overlooked. And sometimes it's almost like, the hippies in the 70s. It's like, oh, there's just a bunch of stoners. No, they actually have something right there. You know what I mean? There was something.
I totally understand what you're saying. But for people who don't have access to like deep woods trails or complete serenity like yourself, how would you recommend somebody starts to tap into that?
Well, you can find bits of nature anywhere. I started running when I was in New York, and I started feeling that just running in Central Park or running up and down the Hudson.
Central Park.
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, and it all started. It all started in different steps. It's almost like an understanding. Just like you said, it's a muscle that you develop. It's something that just like physical fitness, just like mental aspect, the mental attitude going into something, the meditation, and also the appreciation. It changes, it transforms, it grows. You understand it more and more the more you do it. So to me, when I first started just running up and down the Hudson, it was liberating. It was an amazing experience just because for so long I was trapped in between, walls of concrete and gyms. So for that brief moment, just feeling the air and seeing the water shimmering and the light and the leaves and the people running, it's like you draw that energy and little by little you understand more and more. And the more you understand, the deeper you want to go. And by deeper, I mean finding more and more solitude, finding more and more quietude, finding more and more that feeling of just being out there by yourself. There's something very, very, very special there. And, the deeper you go, the more you understand it, the more you need it. That's why I just keep going back for it. It's a never-ending love story.
Now, what is your perception on pain in terms of personal growth? Do you think it's a necessity? I've started to notice the more emotional pain you put yourself through or the more emotional struggle, as with physical, when you come out the other end, you learn a lot more about yourself. Would you agree?
100%, 110%. It's very much a journey of growth and self-discovery. Just like because, just like what we said at the beginning, it kind of allows you to strip down from all the social construct and the way you think you have to portray yourself and you have to carry yourself. So that alone allows you to strip down those things and understand that they mean nothing. They really mean nothing. The only thing that matters is your true self. So if you allow your inner voice to speak, then your whole life, your outside life will change completely, dramatically. So the one thing that we think we need to do is probably the thing that is holding us back, and I mean, just accepting the status quo and doing the things that we think we need to do despite our call, our nature call, our self call. just getting out there, running these races, open up the gate to growth, because you test yourself, you prove yourself that you're capable of doing what most people would think is impossible. So that alone lights up a fire inside of you that makes you feel like you can do anything. So there's understanding, there is self-discovery, there's awareness, there is consciousness even, if you allow that. And there is the understanding that you can do a lot more than what you think you can. And that alone is so inspiring, so motivating, that can and does transcend the sport. And it allows you to bring those lessons learned to everyday life. And I'm telling you, it makes it a lot easier.
Now, I totally understand. Now, when you reach about mile 80 on the Moab 240, when does your brain, what is your brain doing? Is it really going haywire? Are you seeing stuff? Are you kind of delusional?
I gotta tell you, so it was very much like a task for me going in this race, because I ran much longer distances. Like when I crossed the Atacama Desert in Chile, when I ran the Gobi Desert in Mongolia last year, but never just one shot. So there I was running, in Mongolia, I ran about 1,200 miles almost in the course of 3 weeks, but I would go to sleep. I would take little sleeps at night. I would stop and eat. I would have meals. It was a different approach. Here, it was a test again, because I planned ahead of time of not sleeping. I was like, I'm going to try it for myself to see if I can do it. Because, it's hard to stay awake for 3 days straight, let alone running for 3 days straight.
I can't even imagine.
So, just going into the race with a mindset already set up of saying, okay, I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep going and see how far I can go in just one shot. And so it was revelating. It was a great testing ground. It was a great experience for the fact that I never pushed that hard, that far. And so, up until I would say about 150, 160 miles in, I was very much in control. No problem. Don't get me wrong. No problem. It was hard. There's a lot of pain going. There's a lot of, things you have to deal with, highs and lows, emotional, psychological, but I was very much in control. So I knew when the lows were coming. I knew I was enjoying my highs. I was on top of my nutrition. I was on top of my hydration. I was somewhat, clear and focused.
You had like a guiding voice in your head at this point.
Exactly. I was comfortable being alone. Things started getting a little tough, I would say, after 170 miles, 170, 180. And that to me was also combined with the hardest section of the race. So that down happened in the toughest part, which is when you climb out of the desert and you climb over the La Sal Mountains. It's over 11,000 feet. And I was right in the middle of the night. So it was a freezing cold. I think it was like close to 0 or 5 below, something like that. It was freezing. It was ice. A lot of people after me got snow, got a blizzard. I dodged that. But it was freezing cold, a bitter cold. Dip of the night, second night, no sleep. So I was getting very delusional. I mean, by delusion, I mean I started seeing people that I knew sitting on the side of the trails. I'm like, what are you doing up here? How did you get up here? You're all the top of the mountain. There's nobody. And then at some point I started seeing giraffes.
These were old family members?
I saw my grandma.
Really?
I'm like, what are you doing up here? And that kind of scared me, because it was I hope this is not an omen, But she's 96 years old. I'm like, I hope I didn't see something, But what's that?
Cheering you on, or was she you're crazy?
No, she's always cheers me on. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. And then, I started seeing odd things like giraffes. I started thinking I don't know, it was really hard. That section was really, really challenging. And then, out of nowhere, out of the dark, popped this headlight, and it was my pacer, which kind of ran in from the aid station in the early hours of the we were going into the third day. So we're talking about reaching the sunrise 48 hours after the start. At that point, I picked out my pacer, 202 miles in. And this is where I'm like, okay, I have a good shot. I didn't think about it up until that point. But at that moment, I was like, okay, now we only have 38 miles to go. I think we have a good shot of getting the record. And so him and I started running, and the next section started out with the nice rolling downhill. And man, I just the sunrise, the pacer, having somebody, the energy that I was getting, it kind of lifted me up. Like it rejuvenated the spirit, and I started bombing. I started bombing the downhill. I started running like sub 7 minute mile, 200 plus miles into the race. And I was surprised for myself. I'm like, I just thought, I didn't think this was going to be possible. And then, on the following uphill, things happen, and we can get into that if you like.
What did you pass out or?
No, my Achilles. That's where my Achilles on the following uphill. I just, I was just charging. I just felt good. I had my poles. I was very much there, fully involved, fully ready. I was, really digging deep. And on a push off on the rock, my Achilles kind of snapped, and I basically crawled the last 25 miles. Yeah. So those 25 miles took me over 10 hours.
It's so interesting that you're in this point where you feel like you have nothing left in the tank and you're hallucinating, and then just out of nowhere you can pull energy from certain sources all around you just to give you another high. It's so
absolutely. That's a fascinating part of it. When you think you're done, you haven't even started. There's such a outstanding potential in ourselves. Not just our bodies. Our bodies can only go to a certain distance if we allow the body to dictate things. I would say not even the mind has to control your line of thoughts. I think the true fire has to be deeper inside. And here I'm talking about beyond the psychological. I'm talking about the emotional, and I'm talking about, if you want to talk about it in a higher sense, you transcend the body, you transcend the mind, and you reach the heart, you reach the soul. This is why I say ultra running to me is a spiritual practice. It's a spiritual journey, because you really strip down all of those layers. I often say, when I go into races, I try to remind myself to, the mind is a great servant, but a terrible master. And I'm sure you already heard this saying. And by that, I mean, if you let the mind make the decisions, it's always going to take the easy way out. It doesn't matter how strong and focused you are. It doesn't matter how committed you are, because it's just an evolutionary thing. The battle, of course, is of the mind. It's right there. The battle of the mind is not allowing the mind to make the decision, the easy way out.
Winning voice.
Exactly. Because the mind is always going to play that game. It's an evolutionary thing. It's saving you from killing yourself running. But we know now that our bodies can go way further than what we thought we could. So at that point, if you put that on hold, you allow yourself to live outstanding, incredible, amazing experiences. And those are driven by the heart, by the soul. Why you want to do this. The why has to be strong enough to shut up your mind.
I totally get it. Now, I just want to pivot real quick. So what do you currently do training for nutrition?
Ooh, nutrition is a very interesting topic, and it's I would say it's almost as important as training. It's almost as important as working I practice meditation for that, but whichever way you do it, we all have different tactics to control and process your network. Nutrition is one of the most important things because, of course, in everyday training, it allows you to, if you give it the right fuel, it allows you to reach certain stages of training that you wouldn't be able to tap otherwise in terms of energy levels, but also in terms of recovery. When I first started running, I didn't know much about nutrition. I know carbs, I know fats, I know protein. That's about it. I knew the macronutrients. When I started running, I started this process of trial and error. I started trying things that were, new things, see what worked, see what didn't, keep some things, throw out certain things, and just keep trying. And then slowly kind of lined up towards this plant-based nutrition and towards the optimized fat metabolism. And by that, I mean slowly cutting down all the simple sugars, but even the simple carbs. And by that, I mean, I didn't see the necessity of doing carbo loadings and stuff like that. But the fact that, especially in ultra running, you hardly tap into that full gas burst of energy that you need, just like, shorter sports or just like even a marathon. Marathon nowadays, for professional athletes is basically a sprint. So you just load up, you burst of energy, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, you're done. And that's okay. When it comes down to ultra running, there is a switch almost in engine. And by that, I mean, we all know when, we already heard people running marathons saying, 20 miles into the race, 2.5 hours in, 2 hours in, I hit the wall, right? Hitting the wall is nothing but the glycogen depleted. And so the metabolism switches to fats. Mm-hmm. So you have that wall, because you just finished your fuel that your body's burning at that point, the glycogen, the carbs, and it switches to fats. That's when you get your second wind. That's when you start feeling better. That's when you start running. And then when you finish, you feel great. You're like, oh my God, I could keep going. That happens to everybody because our physiology is the same. So if you take this approach, and if you'd like to check more about it, I would recommend to check out Tim Noakes or Peter Defty. They're two forefront, doctors that bring out this revolutionary approach, which more and more endurance runners are taking on, for the fact that it becomes almost like an advantage. You don't focus your nutrition on carbs, on glycogen. You focus your nutrition mostly on fats, on good fats. I eat a lot of avocados. I drink a ton of olive oil, coconut oil, nuts, seeds, all of these things. And what that does is allows you to optimize your fat metabolism. So your economy goes up and you have the advantage of not going through the highs and lows of the hyper and hypoglycemia. So you never go to get those spikes of feeling like $1,000,000 and then crashing, debilitating crash. But you have a very consistent and prolonged release of energy. Think about this. Imagine we have a fire in our chest, right? That's our engine. That's our motor that goes. When you feed it carbs, it's almost like throwing paper on fire. So it makes a big flame, but then it dies out quickly. When you focus more on fats, it's like putting a big log on that fire, and it just keeps burning and burning and burning. So with that in mind, going into ultra endurance, ultra distances, endurance effort, you have the advantage because you never have those highs and lows. You're just very nice and consistent. And you don't need as much food because the food that you take, the fats that you take, are nutrient rich. So it also helps with the stomach.
Were you doing like a salt stick on the trail? Are you doing a goo? What are you normally doing?
Well, initially, we all, of course, the muscles need glycogen. So throughout, you do need some carbs. I'm not saying no carbs at all. I'm saying it's almost like in training, you adapt the body. So when it comes to everyday training, I try not to eat too much carbs. I try to focus most of the nutritional fats, some protein, and then a 1,000 million different color things. which are the things that we always don't keep in consideration. By that I mean, all the real nutrients, the things that truly nourish the body. And here I'm talking about mountains of veggies and fruits and things like that. Colored things that can give the body the true nourishment. And here I'm talking about the enzymes, the vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants, all of those things that truly nourish the cell and allow the recovery process, and gives the nourishment to the cell to create more ATP, more energy. When it comes to races,
sorry to cut you off, Michele. Yeah. Just so for the average listener here, what does that mean? Like, let's say you go do a 10-mile run today. What is your daily nutrition like today?
Right.
You have
for the fact that, well, I have to think about how to word it, because it's almost like it's a switch of paradigm. It's, for a lot of people coming from a regular approach, it makes no sense. For instance, I usually never have breakfast.
Me too, man.
I seldomly have breakfast. I have breakfast maybe once or twice a week if I feel like it. Not because I need it, but just because maybe, I'm training a lot and I just feel like I want a little extra. But sometimes, like most days, I just wake up, I have a cup of usually hot water with half a lemon squeezed in, or maybe a little cup of orange juice with some lemon in it, and I'm out of the door. And up until 2-3 hours, I don't need any food, I don't need any water, I don't need anything. So this is the way that I kind of teach the body to go in economy and to learn to burn fats. So you're optimizing the fat metabolism, you're teaching the body to go in economy. You don't need as much fuel as you think you need. We are taught that we have to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, that we have to eat certain things, but it's all BS. Pardon me. We can dive, like the nutrition aspect is a very tricky thing, and we could spend hours talking about it.
Which is not very evolutionary. We didn't evolve from humans who had access to food at all points.
Exactly, absolutely. So, the guidelines of the nutrition that our society has been followed, they were created basically in the 70s when companies in the corn and all of that stuff industries, they funded certain studies. They came out with that famous, the pyramid, right? The food pyramid, 70% carbs, 20% protein, 10% fats. Look what happened the last 50 years. The spike of cancers, the spike of neurological issues, the spike of diabetes, obesity. Look at the society nowadays. It's a sick society. Why is it sick? Because of what we eat. Highly processed, super sugary foods that keep you addicted. So it keeps on fueling the industry. Here we're talking about, we're getting a completely different discussion, but this is the unfortunate truth. It's the addiction of having to eat that this type of nutrition created. So they created the guidelines to create a society that needs to keep on eating those processed foods. Because why? Because it's money, because it's business. But if you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, we're doing the absolute opposite. Our species as a human being developed thanks to fats, not even protein. The paleo diet is right to a certain amount, because just like wolves, humans hunting, so prey, meat, it will only happen once in a while. It was not a given. Just like carbs. Carbs, they were a gift of nature every now and then, whether it was fruit, whether it was potatoes or honey, it was something that you would encounter. So we evolved over tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, eating a certain way, mostly fueled by fats, which were oils, nuts, seeds, things that were available. And then all of a sudden we stop that and we just take a huge amount of sugar, simple sugars. And that's when the body start crashing. We are unhealthier than we have ever been. A lot of people often say, okay, but what about the mortality rate and what about the age? Well, first of all, just over about 50 years ago, we don't need to go much deeper than that. We didn't have the same infrastructure. We didn't have the same medicines. I mean, most of the people nowadays are kept alive. Yeah, they live a long life, but they're kept alive taking pills and medicines for decades. So is that a way of living? Not in my opinion. So, switching the paradigm truly allows you to tap into a stronger and healthier self and a stronger and healthier body that not only allows you to achieve and be happier outside, achieve more and feel stronger, but even having a much, much stronger and more focused mind. Because again, you don't go through those highs and lows. You don't feel like you're crashing. You're just feeling good all the time. Because whether you eat or not, you always have storages within your body.
So what Michele is trying to say here is he doesn't have any meals. He just eats nuts and berries all day and runs in the woods and stuff.
Basically. Well, the thing is
No meat.
Again, you don't need to eat as many meals a day. Like sometimes I have 2 meals, sometimes I have 1 meal. Last week, because I wasn't running, I did a 3 days fast, and it's okay. It's like you don't need to eat all the time. It's not unhealthy. It's actually the opposite. When you don't eat, when you practice fasting, as I said, it's not just a great thing for the body, for the organs to reset. You just feel good. You feel good. You feel more energized, and your mind is incredible how foggy it gets after you eat. So if you're in that constant search for food, because most people nowadays, and I say most people because I for years I worked in a retreat down in Malibu, and I got to meet hundreds, if not thousands of people. And most people are set in a certain way, in the sense that you have breakfast, you have snacks, you have lunch, you have snacks, you have dinner, maybe you have another snack after dinner before going to bed, then you sleep for 10 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, you get up, you eat right away. So you're basically eating all the time. You're never clean. You're just never yourself. You're always processing. You're always processing something. So that takes away a lot of energy. Yeah, it gives you food, it gives you energy, but you don't even have the time to understand that you have it. You already have the energy before you're already taking out the energy in. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. So I fast. I do an 18 to 19 hour fast every day.
Very good.
And everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I'm like, you just don't understand. Like I never, in terms of energy, hit a wall. I feel energized all day.
Yep.
But one thing I will note is fasting has become increasingly harder for me with my increase in endurance training, obviously, because I'm burning more. So has that ever been has binge eating ever been a problem for you, where like you're holding these meals off for so long, but you already burned like 2,000 calories on your morning run?
Well, I think I believe in flexibility and flows. So I am. I like to, I set myself in a way that works, but then, we're humans. And if I have the feel of having to eat a pizza or something, I just do it. You know what I mean? It's not I don't have to prove anything to be, to stay hard. Pun intended. And by that I mean I also have to you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy yourself, and if you feel like you need extra something, or if you feel like you want to indulge in something, maybe once in a while it's good for yourself, for your mind to kind of release a little bit, enjoy yourself, and the next day you're like, okay, I'm back on track. I don't need anything. Maybe for another week or 2 or 3, who knows? It really depends. Like I try not to be I was very much one-sided, single-minded, laser focus, and that works to a certain extent. You need to have a release every now and then. because otherwise it just doesn't work. At least not in my opinion. You have to have, you need to be flexible. So having a little cheat day, you say, oh, it takes me away from my usual nutritional routine, but it's going to work. It's going to give you 1,000,000 points in other sections, So yeah, you eating a little extra outside your plan, your regimen, but the payoff is much greater. So enjoy yourself. We have one life, we have one ride, better enjoy it. I'm not saying, dive in and be a piggy, but if you want to have a beer with friends, have a beer with friends. If you want to have if you feel like you want to have a little extra something, I'm not saying every day, but every now and then it's okay. So strict to a certain point.
Now, I want to let Lexi ask a question, but real quick, did you use a tracker on the Moab 240? Like, do you have a Garmin or an Apple Watch or anything? A Whoop?
I did have my Garmin, but I only had 5 that race, which after 100 miles, actually under 94 miles, he died. And then I didn't see my crew until the next morning, which was after mile 120. And then I got my friends, my bracelet watch. So a long story to say, no, I don't have the whole track.
I'm just wondering, how many calories do you think you burned across the 60 hours of running?
I didn't calculate it, but I would give it, think about it. Usually you burn about 600 calories an hour, 600 calories. So 600 calories an hour, that's 6,000 times 6, 36,000 calories.
Holy shit.
That's quite a bit.
That's insane. And what, were you fueling like every hour?
I usually take small bites of whatever I'm eating. Usually I start off with some goose or simple, easy process that can be dry fruits, that can be fruit, something that can go easy for the first couple of hours. Because usually I start off already fueled lightly. So going like usually the first 4 or 6 hours, just simple stuff, not too heavy, maybe a little protein here and there. And then going into the 4, 5, 6 hours plus, then I switch a little bit and I start eating more fats. So there I take a lot of nuts, trail mixes. The best ones in my opinion are the macadamia nuts, which is very high, it's a little ball. You pop a couple of those and you got like a nutritionally dense fuel right there. It's
what do you eat after the race? Did you go ham? Did you go to like In-N-Out?
No, actually during the race, because I don't, I'm Italian, I was raised with pasta and pizza and stuff, and then I usually don't eat as much. I keep it almost like as a treat. And so when I finished, I was craving pizza and beer. So that's the first place we went, pizzeria.
Probably so good, right? What's that?
Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? I mean, like I couldn't walk. I could barely walk, and I was like, delusional after 60 hours, not sleeping and running out there, but just being out there and eating that warm meal, sitting down after 60 hours of running and eating, it was a great treat.
I can't even imagine. Hey, Lexi, do you want to ask Michele a question?
Yes. Hi, Michele. My question for you is, I know you touched upon it a little bit about how modeling diet was, but I wanted to know if you could tell me the difference between training to be a model versus training to be a runner, how that differs in a training level.
Right. Great question. Well, the approach is completely different. When I was a model, I was about 185 pounds, 185 pounds of, I don't want to say beefy, but I was definitely working out at a gym. I wasn't training as a bodybuilder, but I was definitely lifting and staying as lean as I could. It wasn't about functionality. It was just about look. So, I did some legs every now and then. I did some, little warm-up runs on the treadmill. but mostly was pushing weights and doing short cardio workouts that would just keep me lean and keep me fit. When it came down to training for running, I just understood that looks mean nothing. And it's all about the strength and the functionality and the adaptation of the body to a certain effort. And so it became less, of course, of a gym approach. And it was just about, as of right now, I do maybe one session a week, maybe an hour and a half a week in the gym. And the rest is all outside, just conditioning the body and the mind, just staying out there, staying on your feet for a prolonged period of time and just getting used to it. So the approach is completely different. Here is on the long side of it, just getting used to the strain and to the rhythm. The other one was more explosive, and it was just about looks again.
Functionality.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we wrap up today, man, thank you so much, dude.
Oh, of course. My pleasure.
We'll have to do it again when you got a big race. Do you ever come out to the East Coast at all?
Well, my wife is from Connecticut, and she's from Ridgefield by Danbury.
Yeah, Southern Connecticut.
Yeah, Southern Connecticut. And we used to come, several times a year. I've also, because of my main sponsor and their publicist is in New York. I've been visiting the past few years very, relatively often. But now with COVID, I haven't been in the city since last, I think, January. So, but if I do, I'll definitely let you know. So maybe we can meet up.
We'll eat some nuts and berries together, man.
Exactly. You know it.
And so right now, just a quick question before we go. So I'm nursing a little bit of a case of runner's knee.
Okay.
Sure, it's something you've dealt with.
Front side?
Inside.
Through the kneecap?
Yes, sir.
It's a hip flexor, 100%.
Okay, so what would you recommend?
So runner's lunge. The runner's lunge. So you start from a standing position. You take a long step forward. Mm-hmm. Do them both. Always do the same on both. Doesn't matter which hurts and which doesn't. Okay. So if you do something on one side that hurts, always do on the other side. Doesn't matter. So you just take a full step forward. Let's say with the right leg, right? Make sure when you do the lunge, okay, you drop your back knee on the ground. You sink in as low as you can, making sure the front knee is stacked on top of the ankle so you don't collapse over, okay? So front knee on top of the ankle, backside, drop the left knee on the ground, release the back foot, release the toes, and then at that point, you inhale the hands up to the sky, roll the shoulders back, reach the gaze up towards you, past your thumbs, okay? So that as you reach back as back as you can, you reach as far as you can, lengthening this whole side, and you'll see that the more you push your arms back, the more you're going to release your abdomen, and your abdomen is going to release the hip flexor. The hip flexor is going to release the quads, and the quads is going to release your problem in the knee.
What are you thinking? Like both knees, do like a 3x10 of those standing lunges?
Well, make sure the back knee is down, so you're not standing. Okay, you're all the way down, and you're pressing your hips forward and down. With that, I would say 30, 45 seconds per leg, maybe a minute per leg, just holding it in and breathing deeply and kind of trying to push it, deepening the stretch out of every single exhale, okay? So you're kind of and pushing and pushing and pushing and holding it. You're not bouncing, okay? You're just deepening. About a minute per leg, a couple of times a day, and you'll see like in a few days, you should release the pressure.
And when you're recovering for injury, do you change nutrition whatsoever?
Well, I do take more supplements, that's for sure, because I usually don't eat meat. So, which, in other ways is what I'm saying is I don't eat gelatins and cartilages and things like that, collagens that have all the stuff that you need to, restore your, it's not much about muscles. the problem, the inflammation always comes with tendons and ligaments. Okay, usually the tendons. So with that, I take some gelatin pills, and then I think a great recommendation is to go into glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, and then if you want to take anti-inflammatories, I recommend turmeric, I recommend ginger, stuff like that. Also,
supplements one more time. I'm just gonna write them down.
Yeah, of course. Well, I started with gelatin pills, which have collagen.
Glucosamine.
And then we have glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM. Usually they come in a pill that has all of them together. And then, if you want to take some antioxidants that will help either way, I recommend some bromelain and quercetin and bromelain. Those are great antioxidants, and they work wonders for long endeavors.
Yeah, I have these friends who are in a supplement store, so I'm going to bring that over to them. Thank you.
Oh, of course, you're welcome. Yeah, I would say those are the things that will keep your joints oiled up and good to go. And then, I think a great focus has to go in after running, after training, taking the time to stretch, taking the time to loosen up the body. Because if you do that, you're just not going to avoid injury, but you also set yourself up for a better day the next day. Mm-hmm. You already loosen up, you already kind of realign the tissues, you're recovering faster. So the next day, when you head out of the door, you're less stiff.
You're the man.
You got it, man.
Hey, so this is how we start and end these episodes.
Okay.
Dude, I'd love to meet you in person soon, man. When the world gets normal again, I'd love to go on a run for you. It would be an honor. Likewise.
Yeah, I hope we get the chance to share some miles, cross our paths somewhere. We'll definitely be in touch.
Trail shoes for Christmas, so maybe I'll run from Boston to Cali, then we can run up some mountains.
All right, sounds good.
Also, when we get off the phone, I want to make sure I can get your address so I can shoot you a sweatshirt.
Oh, sweet! I appreciate that for sure. Yeah, I'll send you a message, a private message.
You're the goat, man. Okay, so this is how we start in the episode. You say, hi, your name, and this is my golden hour. Directly after, no break, you say, hi, your name, and that was my golden hour.
Okay.
You got one shot, man.
All right. Hi, my name is Michele Graglia, and this is my golden hour. Hello, everyone. My name is Michele Graglia, and this was my golden hour.
Blew it. It's that was. Goddamn, man.
What did I say?
You said this was.
that. Okay, let's do it again.
We had 90 minutes of awesome conversation, man.
I just messed up at the end. Come on.
Throwing the whole thing out.
Exactly. Just delete it. Just trash it.
All right, whenever.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michele Graglia, and that was my golden hour.